So I'm going to preface this by saying that I'm a big fan of Severance. Season 1 in particular is peak television. If you haven't seen it, you definitely have to check it out. It's incredible cinematography, super original story, great acting, great casting, great soundtrack, just the whole 9 yards. One of the best shows I've seen in recent time. But it's unfortunate that I have to make this video. I really had a lot of problems with the newest episode, episode 8 from season 2, titled Sweet Vitriol. Now, there's a lot of gripes I have with this episode, and it makes it even worse since it's one of the last episodes of season 2. There's only 2 episodes after this one. So on and on I can go with the praise for season 1. Season 2 has not particularly been bad per se, but it's been extremely slow, all things considered, and they continue to arise more and more questions and not enough answers. I feel like there was already several unanswered questions from season 1, and they're just continuing to pile on more and more in season 2. The quality's still there, the acting is still there, but I think there's a lot of problems with the pacing in the second season, and this episode right here, Sweet Vitriol, is everything wrong with the pacing. So, sort of as a quick synopsis for this episode, it's 37 minutes, which is already kind of strange considering that a lot of the episodes are usually 45 minutes plus, so it was odd to have it be a little shorter than the other episodes, but whatever, I went in there with an open mind. And this episode basically just focuses on Harmony Cobel and what she's kind of been up to and what she does, so it really takes place in a small little decrepit town next to the sea in this cold sort of climate, and it's just very depressing looking, and the entire 37 minutes takes place in this little town. So it focuses mainly on her, and it's such a slow episode that really could have just been summed up in 2 sentences. I mean, this thing literally just focuses on her, and she goes back to her childhood home, she talks with her sister a little bit, and then nothing really happens. It's been a long time since I've seen an episode literally come out, especially, again, we're nearing the end of the season, so this is when the show, any show for that matter, should start to really ramp things up for the final episode. You want these last 2 episodes leading up to the final one to be sort of those cliffhangers, to be sort of pushing the exposition along to get to that final big episode, which should always be the best episode, which is the final episode of the season. So to have this really filler episode, and that's exactly what it is, a huge filler episode. The third to the last episode in the season is already a problem, but the absolute slow pacing in this one was almost unwatchable. I mean, and again, this is not coming from somebody who has a low attention span or anything like that. It's nothing of that sort. It really just is a filler episode. She walks around, she gets helped by this guy that she knows. He takes her to her childhood home. She looks around, she investigates, she finds a key, she opens up the door to her mom's room. She's trying to find stuff. She finally finds one of the more important things of this episode, I guess, which is a booklet and notepad. And in that notepad, we find all these drawings and graphs and sort of these scientific things, which are pretty much alluding to the fact that Harmony Cobel had a lot more to do with Lumon than we would expect. She was not just one of the managers or bosses there. She actually had a lot to do, apparently, with the creation of it, at least with the technology and stuff like that. So that's the one and maybe most important thing that you find out in this episode. And then she has a screaming match with her sister, and then she leaves. That's the whole 37 minutes. It's super slow paced. They're really just stretching out. I don't know why they did that, because typically this show had really good pacing overall, but I'm just dumbfounded that they would take this premise that really could have been summed up in 1 sentence literally and stretch it out for 37 minutes and call it an episode. Focusing on probably one of the most uninteresting characters. Cobel is very one note. She's villain type, but I don't find her interesting at all. So to have an entire episode devoted to her, even though yes, I understand maybe she might be important to the overall role, but she's pretty much been MIA this entire season, and I don't think anybody was wondering, oh, what's she been up to? I knew she was going to show up eventually, but I didn't think they were going to make a full episode on just that. And there's really no reason for it, because if you really break down, not only is nothing going on, but they're literally wasting time. Like, there's a moment where she's just getting high with the other guy in this in this episode. It adds nothing to the overall premise, adds nothing to this episode, adds nothing to the story, doesn't do anything other than waste time. When there's so many questions to be answered and they are wasting time on Cobel in this decrepit, depressing looking town doing nothing whatsoever. Two more things we learn here is that this town that they're in has some kind of connection to Lumon, and maybe possibly it's the first factory or something that they had. This is where Kier apparently met somebody, so there's some little connection there, but again, it's really not that big of a deal. It might be later on, they might pull it back and surprise me with it, but yeah, there's no reason to care for this. At least for me, there's no reason to care for this at all. And then her mother died as well, so it's assumed that her mother died of some kind of sickness. And yeah, those are the three pieces of information that we learn. And it just is so annoying to have this excellent show just really have this episode that's awful. I mean, it really is an awful episode because anything that just is wasting time and not pulling the story. And this, as good of a story as this show has, it's a shame that they did this. And I'm really hoping that they can pull through because there's a lot of questions to be answered in these next two episodes. And they have been doing nothing. This is not the time to be throwing in a filler episode about Harmony Cobel that basically changes nothing about the story and didn't progress anything. And on top of that, cherry on top, for some weird reason, we have Devon, Mark's sister, calling up Harmony Cobel, and I'm talking several times calling her over and over and over again. This makes zero sense as to why Devon would be calling her. I'm not understanding this at all. I'm not understanding why, after everything that Cobel did, lied to her, basically stole her child, which she thought she did, but she literally gave her the fright of a lifetime by almost kidnapping her child, lying flat out, being told by Mark that Harmony Cobel is not to be trusted and that she's not a good person and she is evil. And after all that, Devon's gonna be like, yeah, let me call this person. And then Cobel's like, and Devon flat out just tells her like, oh yeah, he's being reintegrated. What should we do? And then Cobel, like as if they're buddy-buddy, like as if they didn't just have this moment in the last season that literally would make you never trust this person ever again and stay away from them because they're evil, basically. But no, Devon doesn't think that. I guess has no one else to call, so let's call this one person that has everything to do with why Mark did what he did to begin with. It makes zero sense, and she calls her. She's like, tell me everything. So what are they, buddy-buddy now? I don't understand this. And if they didn't establish that, clearly they didn't know each other last season, then if they didn't establish that, then maybe I would be like, oh, there might be some kind of twist here with Devon's working with Harmony Cobel. No, it's definitely established last season that they did not even know each other before this point, and it's very clear that she was being lied to. Devon had no idea, so that twist wouldn't even make sense. So that just made zero sense whatsoever. It's just a cherry on top of this lackluster episode. So, you know, let me just end off more on a positive note because I know it's just me trashing on this episode, but one thing I hate more, I'm gonna get to the positive part, I swear, but last thing, one thing I hate more than anything is wasted time, especially in a show as dense as Severance that has so many questions to answer and so many things going on with so many different characters. There's nothing more I hate than having an episode that literally is just a waste of time, that if you took the entire 37 minutes, if you omitted it from the season, nothing would be different, and that's the problem altogether. With all that in mind though, I do have hopes because they really have kept the quality up so far, even though it's been slow, like I said, that's been my gripe, but other than that, I think the quality has still been there and the acting's great, and again, one of the most original, awesome stories. I loved season 1. I'm just hoping that they can close it out. I'm not losing hope just yet, but I know these shows, they tend to lose their way sometimes. Not always, but sometimes these shows, the longer they go on, the higher chance they have of messing it up. And again, we're only on the second season, so hoping that they can close this one out good and continue it on to the third season, and hopefully we can get back on track. But I just don't want to feel like they're prolonging this reintegration process and they're adding these filler episodes just to continue, just so they don't have to get to it until the end. I understand, but at the same time, there's better ways to do it, and maybe they shouldn't have written themselves in a corner like that. But that's just my opinion. Let me know below what you thought of this episode, and be sure to hit that subscribe button to stay up to date with the latest videos just like this.